I ran a Shopify store in Australia for over a decade, sending up to about 150 grand per year overseas to suppliers. And if I hadn't paid attention, this one mistake could have cost me thousands of dollars every year. And as you're about to see, even much smaller stores can fall victim to this same issue. But the good news is, of all the ways that our businesses can leak money, this is probably one of the easiest and simplest ones to fix. And I'm talking about the conversion trap. It affects any business that imports from overseas, and if you also sell products overseas, the problem multiplies and you'll definitely waste heaps of cash if you don't get this right. That's why I've partnered with Airwallex for this video to do a deep dive into how their business accounts solves this and how it stacks up against Australia's big four banks. And if you're a fan, then drop a like, because the algorithm is absolutely smashing human creators at the moment. So let's jump into it. All right, so what is the conversion trap? The conversion trap happens when you have suppliers and customers outside of Australia and you end up paying double the currency conversions, converting what your customers paid you into Aussie dollars, only to then convert it back again into whatever your suppliers are paid in. So this double currency conversion means that you've got twice the foreign exchange cost, reduced profits, and just generally less control over your business finances. So this is what a typical Shopify store looks like. On the left here, you've got your customers. You'll probably start domestically, but once things start going well, you'll also serve customers internationally and you'll start to receive income in foreign currency. So with a typical normal banking setup, every time you receive international payments, these transactions will receive a forced conversion into your local currency. And you might be thinking, well, that's fine because I need Aussie dollars anyway. But hang on a second, right? Because you probably need to buy stock from your overseas suppliers, probably in USD. You might need to pay overseas freelancers in USD. Maybe you've got some software subscriptions that they charge you in USD. So your money will then receive another forced conversion back into USD. And then you've just done two pointless conversions, losing out on fees both times. And not to mention, these conversions, they might normally happen at pretty bad foreign exchange rates, to be honest, because you don't have a say in it at all. So even if all your customers are in Australia, you can still save heaps of money by adjusting your banking setup and thinking about the things we're talking about in this video. So, by the way, I feel like now is a good time to mention I'm not a financial advisor. I'm just talking from 11 years of experience running an online store in Australia. As always, ask your accountant for more personalized advice. Now we've wrapped our head around what the conversion trap is, let's look at how Airwallex solves it, okay? So the key thing is Airwallex lets you have a multi-currency business account, meaning that you can receive and hold over 20 currencies and have local bank details in over 60 countries. So if you have customers in the US, like they can pay you in USD like a local, like you're actually based there. And then you can hold that money in a USD wallet, and then you can use it to pay your supplier in China, right? With zero currency conversions instead of two. So even if you don't have customers in the US, but let's say, for example, you have customers in the UK, like I did, you can choose to hold that money from them in Great British pounds or convert it directly into USD at a better rate, and this is important, than what your bank can offer, because Airwallex gives you access to interbank rates. So regardless of the transaction size, even when you do need to convert funds, you can still make pretty substantial savings. And obviously, if you've got a supplier in the UK, like I had a local 3PL warehouse, for example, you can keep some funds in GBP, Great British Pounds, and use it to pay those UK suppliers directly. Again, you're doing no currency conversions. Now, you might be thinking, what if 100% of your sales come from Australia and you've got no sort of plans or interest in changing that and expanding overseas? Well, there's nothing wrong with that, by the way, at all. You can definitely run your business like that, but you can still be leveraging Airwallex's international transfer rates, because to be honest, they're crazy good. So you can use those rates to pay your overseas suppliers from Aussie dollars. So let's plug in some numbers and see what sort of money you could be saving. So on the right here, you've got a big four bank in Australia, and on the left, you've got Airwallex. Don't get too excited about this balance here. I'm not using my actual account for this demo, unfortunately. But you can see here, you've got your accounts in different currencies, and you can see here you're holding balances in each one. So let's just see what it's going to cost us to do a transfer to overseas, to, let's say we're paying an overseas supplier, versus what it'll cost us doing the same sort of imaginary invoice with a big four bank. So let's say we need to pay a supplier in China, and they've sent us an invoice in USD for 10,000 USD. That's going to cost us 15,484 Aussie dollars at today's exchange rate. Let's say we wanted to do that with a big four bank. That's going to cost us 15,792. So it's going to cost $308 more using a big four bank versus what it would do when we use Airwallex. And you can actually test this out yourself for your own invoices. Just go to the link in the description and then click or hover over products and then click FX and transfers, and it'll bring up this screen, and you can literally just start typing in your own figures in there to get a calculation for how much you can be saving with your transfers. That's pretty mad, right? And you can do international transfers to over 200 countries. And unlike traditional bank transfers that might typically take a few days and obviously include a transfer fee, Airwallex leverages local payment rails, which basically means like local payment networks. So transfers are completely free and will arrive on the same day, something like 95% of the time, if not instantly. Now, something you might come across is that some suppliers will offer you the option to pay them in AUD, but if they normally prefer other currencies, then tread carefully here, right? You'll want to check the maths on these new AUD prices that they're offering, because you don't know what exchange rate they're using, right? So what you should be doing in that case is asking for the price in USD and AUD and just working out the exchange rate there, because you may be better off doing it yourself, particularly if you're going to use something like Airwallex, right? Oh, and with Airwallex, you can lock in the preferred exchange rate when you need to, so you're not going to get surprised by any sudden like rate fluctuations or anything like that. All right, so clearly you're going to save a big chunk of change with this, but is it complicated to use? Well, surprisingly, no. It's actually really user-friendly, and I think that's because it's like an all-in-one solution. So it also acts as a payment gateway. So obviously any Shopify users will be familiar with that term. And in Shopify, there's actually a Shopify payment plugin that makes it an absolute piece of cake to then just install into your Shopify store, and then it makes it an absolute breeze to accept global payments. So it will let you accept payments in over 160 payment methods in over 180 countries, right? Which is good for you, obviously, and it's good for your international customers. So then it will boost checkout rates and conversion rates, which is then obviously in turn good for you also. And another key thing, which is absolutely essential in my opinion, is that it will sync to your accounting software such as Xero, so you can just track it in a lovely, easy way. That's not, you know, I don't think that's anyone's favorite part of the business, reconciling payments and expenses and things like that. So the easier you can make that, the better. On top of that, you can issue physical or virtual corporate cards to your employees if you have some. I think the way to think about it, like I said, is that it's an all-in-one platform. So in using this, it takes the place of your bank, right? It takes the place of your payment gateway and your currency exchange provider if you were going to use one. So I think we need to remember here, because we're talking about like 1%, 2% each time fees, and it may not seem like a lot, but when you're dealing with tens of thousands of dollars, or even that just thousands of dollars, it is a lot, especially when you're doing it multiple times. So when we've got an all-in-one platform, it just makes everything a lot easier, which is half the battle, to be honest. Right, who it's for and who it's not for, because to be brutally honest, right, it's not for everyone. As you may have guessed, if your whole business is purely domestic, so I mean like your suppliers are in Australia, your customers are in Australia, your employees are in Australia, it's going to be hard for you to make the most of the benefits from Airwallex. because you're just not going to make the most of all its best tools and features. But if you're planning to grow your business internationally, or you're already making overseas payments to suppliers or employees, or if you're receiving overseas payments from customers overseas, then it's going to save you heaps of money over time. And if you're doing both, then it's an absolute no-brainer, because it would just be madness to keep paying your bank 2 to 3% every time you need to move money around. All right, so let's talk about pricing. So there can be a monthly fee for holding an account with Airwallex. So you obviously need to factor that in. But if you deposit 5,000 Aussie dollars per month, or if you simply hold a balance of 10,000 Aussie dollars, then the Explorer account will be completely free. But even if you don't meet either of those thresholds, then it's like $29 per month, which honestly is still tiny compared to the currency exchange savings you'll be making. There are other tiers of subscriptions, but for most of you watching this channel, the basic Explore channel is going to be the right fit. You get your multiple bank accounts with local details, you get your free transfers to over 120 countries, you get access to interbank foreign exchange rates, up to 10 multi-currency company cards, your payment gateway for your Shopify store. Oh, and something I actually didn't mention before is that your balance will receive a 3.33% yield, which isn't quite as high as, like, you know, some of the top savings accounts you can get right now. But for an everyday sort of, like it's like an everyday business account, you can withdraw whenever you want, right? And that's a really solid rate for that type of account. If you want to test it out before handing over any cash, there's a link in the description that will get you a month's free trial, so you can go in there, have a look at the dashboard, have a good nose about and see if it's for you before you hand over any money. Now, another thing to be aware of is that there are no branches. So if you're a fan of like walking into a physical branch, then that's something to bear in mind. I can't remember the last time I actually walked into a branch, but it might be something that's important for some people. If you're on the top tier, you get a dedicated account manager. Otherwise, you get email support, but it is 24/7, which is handy if you're a side hustler like me and you're working weekends and nights. The website says it's already trusted by over 150,000 businesses worldwide. Now, they don't say how many of those are in Australia, but the point is, this isn't some like brand new little tiny fintech startup. This is a massive legitimate company. If you're importing stock into Australia and you're not using Airwallex, you might just be giving away way too much money in bank fees and currency conversions. Like I said, if you want to check it out for free, there's a link in the description. It's an affiliate link, but it won't cost you anything extra at all, and it massively helps this channel so I can keep doing deep dives like the one you just watched. As always, any questions about importing into Australia or running a Shopify store in Australia, or even just any Aussie small business questions, drop them in the comments and I will try and answer all of them. And until next time, take it easy.